So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to all of the attendees for today's webinar on monetizing insurance innovation strategies. And I would like to take some time to introduce myself, talk a little bit about the subject, and then introduce our speakers for today. My name is Greg Donaldson. I'm a senior analyst with IT Group. I cover the insurance space, primarily property and casualty, but really all the lines. And one of the things that I try to look at is what kind of innovation is occurring in the insurance industry, what kind of impact is that going to have on our industry? And one of the key things that comes up whenever I'm doing research is trying to link all of the innovation and technical advances that are occurring out in the space with how those are going to impact the return on investment and the actual profit and loss of each insurance carrier. And that's some of the stuff that we want to talk about today. And so what I'd like to do is take a minute and introduce you to each one of our panelists today and give them a chance to kind of give an opening and talk a little bit about what their thoughts are on monetizing insurance innovation. So first I'd like to introduce Milan Sood. He's the head of innovation strategy at AXA. Milan, please tell us a little bit about yourself and your thoughts on our subject today.
Thanks, Greg. Thank you very much, everyone, for dialing in and joining from wherever you are in the world. I'm very pleased to be talking today on this webinar. So as Greg said, I head up innovation for AXA Partners UK and Ireland. My area of the business is almost entirely B2B. I mean, the majority of you will know AXA as a big global B2C brand, but my area is B2B. And we work with organizations across a whole range of sectors, from other insurers to retailers, banks, utilities organizations, original equipment manufacturers, the list goes on. And it's our responsibility really to deliver new and exciting innovation initiatives to AXA and to our existing clients. I've been within my role within AXA for 2.5 years now. Previously to that, I was working for Barclays Bank in the fintech space in banking. And I think what's very interesting to see is the same patterns that played out in banking are now playing out in insurance, whereby we have a move from these insurtechs are coming to steal all our customers and the incumbents are going to die, to actually let's collaborate, look at value chain innovation and see how we can partner with relevant organizations to deliver new and exciting initiatives to the market. What's very interesting about today's topic is that innovation monetization is often something which is overlooked in organizations. And I think that that's because it is potentially sometimes seen as a bit of a side of desk activity. People have their BAU jobs and they're looking at keeping the lights on, rather than looking at how we future-proof ourselves for what's going to come. We've taken a very different approach at AXA, and we have heavily invested in innovation. And AXA Partners, the area of the business that I work for, is considered the kind of innovation centre of excellence. And we've invested €1 billion over the last 5 years in a variety of strategies in order to make sure that AXA is ready for the future and is driving the innovation sector forward. Our strategy is multifaceted. We do a number of things, including we have a venture arm, so AXA Venture Partners is strategically investing in organizations. We have AXA Camet, which is a startup design studio, which takes very tangible problem statements and builds organizations around that, so starting with the problem rather than the solution. We have various heads of innovations across different locations, all of whom work together to build a quite large internal community who are able to push the innovation agenda forward. So we also, have AXA Next, who are constantly out there in the market scouting organizations in order to deliver best-in-class initiatives to our business. The thing for me when it comes to monetizing innovation is that it's extremely important to ensure that there's kind of senior level buy-in. So as I mentioned before, I think that a number of people within the business take on kind of almost a maverick approach of, yes, we're going to go and do something innovative, or we're going to try and do something different, which is highly commendable. But from my experience, you need to ensure that there is that senior level buy-in, because ultimately when you're coming to scaling and monetizing, you will get to a point where you need a budget signed off, or you need significant investment to make something work. And without that, it will always be kind of a skirmish to try and get things done. So my first point really would be in ensuring that there's senior level buy-in. My second point is that accepting that in the first instance, the innovation agenda within your business will probably be a cost and will not monetize, possibly not even for the first year. And there has to be an acceptance of that. Good things come to those who wait. And ultimately, if you're partnering with organizations who are smaller in scale and need time to become used to working with large incumbent organizations, then these things take time. So my second point really is accepting in the first place that this will be a cost base and not a revenue generator until you reach a point of scalability. My third point would be that ensuring that you create an environment which allows the innovation to flourish. And I mean that both externally and in an internal context. As I mentioned, we work with a large number of clients across a large number of sectors, all of whom have varying approaches to working with startup and scale up organizations. And I've seen too many organizations who basically will take a process that they use for another big corporate partnership and try and put it on a startup or a scale up organization. And that kills a proposition before you've even got it off the ground. So my third point would be around creating internal processes which allow you to basically interact with these kind of organizations, because believe me, in the insurtech space, these companies talk to one another. And, I think there is a naivety that we see ourselves as incumbents in that, yes, they'll just want to go ahead and work with us. But as you become a well-established insurtech and become a valuable commodity, if you hear from other organizations that this particular incumbent is difficult to work with, then you're going to turn around and say no to them. It's not always, that they're just going to be scrambling around wanting to work with you if you're very difficult to work with. These organizations have limited funds, timing, resource, and you have to kind of respect that. It's very much about give and take. So the first thing that I did in building out our capability was to create the processes which allowed for us to engage with startup and scale up organizations. They were things like MOU style contracts, lighter documentation, lighter onboarding processes, which allowed you to not stifle what the startup was trying to do. My next point would be to ensure what level of scalability of a startup you're looking for. Now, if you are looking at going for, startups who are idea on a PowerPoint, that's fantastic, but you have to recognize that you're not going to see returns overnight. From my time at Barclays, we worked very much with pure startups in the sense that they were sometimes even just talented people who had an idea but didn't have anything beyond that. And we helped to kind of scale that and grow those kind of things out. But these things take time, they take investment, and they take a lot of support. Our focus on AXA has switched slightly, and our work is now focused more on organizations who you would consider scale-up organizations, Series A and beyond. And that's because that they have an ability to work very quickly, get to market very quickly, and also provide that monetization which everybody is looking for. My next point is to be data-led. There's far too many organizations out there who take innovation as a topic, hear something quite abstract out there, such as the buzzwords of AI or blockchain or smart home, and just run after something without speaking to their customers. To bring that to life really with a very tangible example would be around the connected home. So if we look at insurance as an industry, every insurer out there took smart home and believed that what they were going to do was solve the escape of water problem. Why did they start there? They started there because it cost them more than any other peril in the home on an annual basis. But actually, you go out and speak to customers and they don't care about a water leak unless they've experienced one, which is still minimal, despite being the biggest peril. They're not thinking it's going to happen to them. And when it does, actually, it's that their insurer is going to step in. So we took a step back and focused much more on the things that really matter to customers, which end up being quite trivial things like, is my pet tearing up the house? Are my kids home from school? Is the security of my home maintained? And they were the things that we've gone after and built sustainable partnerships in these spaces. My next point would be starting small with very controlled pilots. So too many organizations come up with what they think is a great idea and try and roll it out to too many customers at once. The process falls over and it's all a great disaster. We focused on running these controlled pilots with ring-fenced teams internally who may well be doing manual processes before you start to get to a point where you can integrate, have very strict KPIs. As I've already mentioned, MOU style agreements, manual processes and limited integrations. So you're testing a concept. There's other techniques out there which you can find quite easily, like false door testing to understand customer demand. But really what you're looking for is to understand what are the key KPIs we need to understand from this trial and then prove them. You're not looking to set the world alight in the first instance. It's all about proving the concept. As we move through to beyond the kind of pilot stage and into the scale-up phase, that's when things become most difficult, because a lot of organizations get stuck in what I call kind of proof of concept paralysis, which is we prove and test lots of nice things, but actually we don't really have the appetite to scale them up. Your focus should be, in my opinion, on innovation for dough and not innovation for show. And there are too many organizations who will do the nice, fluffy innovation things in order to satisfy somebody on the periphery of the organization and not actually to deliver on the bottom line. The focus really should be on bottom line when it comes to delivering innovation initiatives in your organizations. And the way to do that is, as you move from controlled pilots to scale-ups, is that you need to move back to, what, in my opinion, a more traditional approach, which is very solid business cases. You've gone out and you've done your customer research, you've proved that there's demand for it, you've proved a process that works, then go back to some, kind of real down and dirty business case work and get sign off at a senior level. Once you've done that, you're then in a position to scale these kind of initiatives rather than just letting them all fall by the wayside. Because you have run your pilots and proof of concepts, you should have proven the ones that you don't believe are going to work, and then you only move forward with the ones that you believe have the greatest chance of succeeding. And my final point on this really would be to communicate some successes, making sure that your innovation voice is heard. Particularly in the B2B space, for us, this is really important that we're getting our stories out there into the media. So working with your PR organizations, being very active on LinkedIn, connecting yourselves with industry leaders, going to the right events. These are all things that are really, really important to position your own organization as one that's seen as an innovative organization within the sector, and not one which is just another dinosaur who's trying to do something on the periphery but really is only interested in their BAU. So I think that probably brings me towards the end of my 10 minutes, but there's some key learnings from my perspective. I'm proud to say that we are now significantly monetizing our innovation agenda, delivering on our bottom line, and have moved from startups and pilots and proof of concepts in year one to very tangible, scalable propositions in year two. And long may the journey continue. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Milan. We appreciate all of your comments. Before I introduce Zhao, I would like to remind everybody that as you have questions and as you think of things you want to ask, you don't have to sit and wait on those. Please enter them in the system and we'll be collecting them so that we can ask them towards the end in the Q&A section. So now I would like to introduce Zhao Pedro Machado. He is the Director for Transformation at Fidelidade in Portugal. So Zhao, take it away.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you. It's also a pleasure to be here speaking today. So for those of you who don't know who is Fidelidade, Fidelidade is the leading insurance company in Portugal. We are market leaders in all business lines, life and non-life. And we're also present abroad. So we are present in Spain and France for Europe. We are present in Africa with Cape Verde, Angola, and Mozambique. We are present in China. We are present now in Latin America with the acquisition of La Positiva, the fourth largest insurance company in Peru. And that gives us a good standing point for innovation. Being market leaders with an international path give us the bandwidth as well, the time and attention to innovate in our solutions. We have created internally what we call the Center for Transformation. it's not really focused on incremental initiatives, but rather in transformational initiatives, mostly through new solutions and new business. And I would like to share that it's divided in two areas, one focused in innovation and another focused in transformation. So while innovation is much more focused on gathering, filtering, and sharing new ideas, and the idea is to have a strong pipeline of new innovation leads looking into all markets where Fidelidade has a presence, or all ecosystems where Fidelidade has a presence. And here I would call it markets with a capital M. We look to everything which can be a solution for our clients, regardless if it's only focused in insurance or not. And here we focus a lot on the home ecosystem, mobility ecosystem, life, leisure, travel, entertainment, health, business to business, where cyber, for example, is one of the good examples to share this approach. Also Fidelidade itself, it's also an ecosystem. And here we find all kind of new trends, new solutions, new ideas that are coming that we somehow can use to increase the value proposition for our clients. We must not forget that usually we speak about our clients with passion, but there is still today a huge gap between the insurance product and the client's life. No one wakes up in the morning willing to buy an insurance. No one goes for dinner with their friends and puts a policy over the table showing the fantastic coverages that acquired in that policy. So we need to find ways to mitigate the gap between the insurance and the client within the specific ecosystem. And here innovation plays a critical role finding those new leads. Having those leads identified and validated, they're picked up by the transformation area that basically what does is the normal cycle of build, measure, learn, to test, to prototype, and test and pilot those solutions. Significant focus on the clients. So all the empathization phase where we listen a lot to the market, to the people on the street, the definition of the problem, the ideation of the several use cases, prototyping, it's something that we spend significant time listen, learning, trying what's new and what we can do to work. And then the normal cycle of piloting to test and see if we have significant acceptance for scale. And this is something interesting when we speak about these two areas, that both these areas need to present results in a very fast and seamless way. So innovation is to find new value propositions that the market is willing to take, and transformation is to be very fast learning if that is a valid solution for the market. Today we don't speak as much as try hard, fail fast, but try hard and learn fast. And when we speak about the return that we can take on those ideas and the value for the market, it's something that we see in three ways. So every time we find a solution that it can be viable in the market, we see it in three ways. Either it's viable because it's something that can disrupt our current business model, because it can improve our top line, can bring new products, can bring new dynamic, intelligent pricing, can bring new revenue streams to our top line, but also can improve our bottom line. For example, can act on prevention, can help us support with better risk assessment. And this is something that we look from the business model perspective. A second way that we look into these initiatives return is if cannot necessarily generate revenue or increase our profit, but can increase our engagement. If it's something that can provide a new experience and a different experience, if it can bring us engagement and develop new relationships with our clients, or it's something that help us collecting feedback or collecting data. As Milan said previously, and we totally agree, currently data is a very important tool or a result from several tools to help improve our business. The third way that we look into these solutions is if these solutions can be a connector for different ecosystems. If it's something that is a technical solution or an enabler that can help me connecting my home ecosystem with my mobility ecosystem, my life ecosystem, and that is something that can be seen when we are working into specific client segments. So when we look into these three areas, we basically validate if these initiatives are prepared or not to go to the market as we stand today. When we're filtering these initiatives in our transformation and innovation strategy, we have what we call the strategy of the 3E. We have from an engagement perspective, and basically we look into our ecosystems and see new value propositions and can, as I said previously, that can help create a new value for our clients. And these are initiatives that may not necessarily have or be related with insurance. Can be new solutions that, from our point of view and from where we stand, insurance companies have the rightful skills in their DNA to provide the solutions. The second is what we call the explore. So basically, we are exploring new alternative business models, typically leveraged by new digital solutions, and we test new trends and paradigms, for example, economy on demand, gig economy, sharing economy, affinities, parametric insurance, new solutions that new digital models can help us develop. The third E that we use is also the experiment. So basically, not necessarily leveraged by one value proposition, but assess new technological or business solutions that are starting in a market, don't have any proven results yet, but they are something that can be developed and tested to see what is the future potential. For example, and this is, I think it's the one that is commonly spoken about, it's blockchain. No one yet created one product that is revolutionizing the insurance world, but everyone is testing the different angles and experimenting this technological enabler because everyone agrees that will be a revolution in the future. So with this in mind, what we do typically is we test significantly the market. We listen a lot to our clients. We can listen to their pain points. We can understand customer frictions. We scout market opportunities, and we find new different ways to bring the customers on board. And for that, usually, we use internal and external resources. For external resources, obviously that we have the normal ones that everyone is using. So we use digital labs. We speak a lot with market players. We speak a lot with incumbents that are already in the market. We speak a lot with startups. All of these bring a lot of flexibility to our innovation and transformation, bring new tools, and help us to validate in a very fast and swift way what is the opinion of the market on those innovations. Then on transformation, we also use significant market tools, but also players that help us develop our solutions. For example, when we speak about design thinking, it's something that we use significantly to assess the market needs, and we use a lot of local players that are actively in a regular way in the market, assessing what the market is saying and what market understand for several solutions. When we go internally, even though we already are using some agile methodologies, especially when we're talking about the implementation of IT solutions, and basically our projects are highly leveraged by technological solutions, we try to have a very lean and small team, which increases when we are implementing any solution. So between developing individually any transformation and innovation, or bringing already the business in to help us develop that innovation, today what we are doing is we are bringing the business in and people from the business to support us on the development. Yes, we acknowledge that on a first step, it's sometimes a setback to kickstart an initiative. It takes a bit longer to involve and mobilize the teams, but we also acknowledge that at the end of the day, delivery, scale, handover are much more easy and facilitated, which brings us to the topic of monetizing. First, we try to do it small. We don't try to do it big. When we talk about an MVP, when we talk about minimum viable products, something which is simple, lovable, and complete, This is one of the most difficult actions and decisions that we have to take on the teams, because basically we get enthusiastic in the solutions and we try to put everything, and the just in case or why not just add this more is also something that comes to our plate, and it's usually a solution killer. So we try to do it small and fast and pragmatic. And second, we want to try it and test very fast. It's not easy, as Milan also said, sometimes to test something and say, no, it doesn't work, but we do it a lot. But mostly when we do it with very small iterations, always with the view to see if the client accepts. And the biggest surprise that we always get is that the client accepts something that we are not expecting. So the first rule, or if the first rule is to do a very good MVP, so simple, lovable, and complete, the second learning is that we are not the client. So validate what the client wants, test from what the client perspective. It's something that we do very often. Obviously, if we are looking to smart homes and skip of water is something that is a pain point for the clients, yes, we do acknowledge that selling a water leakage detector for our clients currently is something that doesn't work because the clients will not buy it. Even broader solutions for smart homes, we found it that just a solution by itself, clients do not buy it. This means that we need to test and validate very well in order to understand what the client wants and to try to scale small sets of these solutions and validate in the market. For us, it's really important to launch this. We are not basically even communicating much of this, and I do agree also with Milan that we should communicate what we're doing well, but mostly we are looking desperately to understand what the client wants and place this in a way that it's a bulletproof solution in terms of value proposition, as well in terms of technological solution. So in a nutshell, it's what we can share about monetizing innovation in what we are doing.
Excellent. So thank you very much. I appreciate all of that. And I hope you guys are coming up with some good questions and sending them in, because there's a lot of great information being passed on here. So now I'd like to turn it over to Peter Stockhammer. He is a managing director at Generali's Vitality Unit. So Peter, please take it away. Tell us your thoughts on monetizing innovation.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. To give you a little bit of background, as the name already indicates, Generali Vitality is a subsidiary of the Assicurazioni Generali based in Trieste, Italy. And our journey started a few years ago, where we had a simple question that's saying how to move a 184-year-old insurer into the digital area. Yeah. This was one of the things that we came up. And looking back, as many of these global insurers, we have a great heritage. And as always saying in speeches, looking in past, our business trips when the company was founded were done with the ship and with the carriage. So no cars, not even planes have existed. And we have to understand where we're coming from and have to understand the sources. And also when we move into the digital area. So more or less we then a forerunner, and when we thought about digitalization, we said, okay, let's also take this opportunity to do a shift in the paradigm of insurance. So we moved from protection to prevention and came up with the Vitality program, which is a wellness program, a fully digital program supported by an app or a web portal, where we help the people to live healthier. The benefit, and to achieve this, we created an ecosystem where we supported by several partners coming out from other industry than the insurance industry, like fitness trackers, sports apparel suppliers, from the supporting us in healthy food. And what we have to do is here, and we are doing from a central perspective, meaning Generali internally rolling this program out in several markets in Europe. So we have to handle for that this ecosystem of partners, and have to handle as well and being the interface to our business units. And here more or less, let's say you have to juggle in parallel several plates and always keep them moving and rotating and ensure that they're not falling down. Let me use this analogy. And I'm pointing this out because what we're facing is a different culture. Clearly, when you're looking in the insurance industry, you have long-term contracts, especially when we're talking about life products where we're working on. And on the other hand, you have partners who have, I don't know, 15 product renewals each year. And we have to bring all this together. And when we're talking about monetizing this business, you have to take into account, we have an existing successful insurance business, like many insurers. And important is when you talk about digitalization is to reach the tipping point, means not to kill your existing business, which brings still the profit in and is very successful, but let the new digital business grow and slightly feed it in your overall proposition that you offer as an insurer. And for us, when we're talking about monetizing, it was also important, as we said, we supporting this wellness program. The benefits that we're gaining from it is, as we link this to life propositions or health propositions, is to push the protection business. So here clearly the benefit for us is that we shift to protection business, which has in the insurance industry a higher margin. And we achieved a huge boost in sales due to that, more than you're saying just identify an initiative, how can you increase your sales in this segment or line of business compared to the previous year. We have a much higher engagement with our customers. So we are in regular contact as this program is permanently communicating with our customers. So there's a much higher interaction that we see compared, as I said, with the long-term products that we have, where we potentially, besides that the sales advisor has contact, you see the change of a bank account or it's shifting its home address. And getting also some benefit in the retention area. So as the people getting sticky or catchy to the system, we see an improved retention rate as they have to keep this proposition to keep also the insurance business. And we're working in a corporate and retail approach, and in a corporate approach, we're achieving as well for the corporates that they have healthier employees, and which is also a benefit which we created. So what is important, as I said, is to reach the tipping point. As Milan pointed out at the beginning, I think it's crucial that you have support and sponsorship from the top executives of your group to push this change through, and really, as I said, to feed it in slowly. One of our other industry, the best examples for that is always for me Nespresso. So when you thought back how much you pay for a kilo of coffee and what you pay for a kilo of Nespresso, then see you where the boost is coming, and was just simple as you reshaping the proposition. I think that is important when we thinking about digitalization, and as I said, link all these different providers together. And with that, I think it's good that our audience have also the opportunity to ask the questions, and I would like to hand over to Craig.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So the first thing I'd like to do is thank all three panelists for your intro. And we already have a couple of questions submitted. And the first one is, it started out as a question for Milan, but really it's going to be a good question for all of you to talk a little bit about. So Milan, I'll start with you. When you're working on innovation and you're working on communicating within your organization, who are the main departments or individuals that you communicate with on a regular basis? How does that structure set up to allow you to get that information that your unit is coming up with out to the appropriate departments?
Yeah, sure. Great question. So thanks very much for that. One of the things that we did, which we found to be really useful, is we built something called an entrepreneurs group. And that is taking people from across the organization who are interested in innovation, are interested in driving things forward, especially when you have that senior level buy-in. These are the kind of groups that people want to be part of because they feel like they're part of a group of people who are able to make a change within an organization, who are then visible to senior stakeholders when they may not be within their kind of day-to-day job. And actually what that did was helped us build a team of advocates from across the organization. So we have people within our entrepreneurs group from people who answer the phone in the call center up to very senior level executives from across the organization. So the thing is with innovation, ultimately, you're looking to deliver a product to the market, which probably will impact a large number of areas within your organization, whether that's a controls function like a legal or compliance or finance, through to more operational roles like your network teams or even into your call centers. Quite often they're affecting a large number of parts of the organization. So we found that by creating that network within the organization of people who want to be involved, they were then able to share the message with their teams. And also it allowed for kind of, when you're building a project, more informal ways of unlocking potential roadblocks within the organization. So, very quickly you might know somebody from finance because they come to the entrepreneurs group, or somebody knows them, and it creates kind of that wider network of people. So that was something that we found to be very valuable when kind of trying to unlock the potential within the organization.
Perfect. Zhao, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, we created something that we call the innovation plugins that basically have two dimensions. Either it's for inspiration or innovation. When we're trying to share what we are doing and share innovation, we don't only want to share, but also to collect pain points and the feedback from the company. So from this inspiration part, we created small coffee chats. It's 15, 20 minutes meetings, small meetings, usually one-to-one between the innovation team members, and usually directors and senior level members from the company, just to discuss what we are looking, but also to understand their pain points. We have built what we call demo days, which are days where we share some innovations in a practical way with some demos, just to show where technology currently is and what are the potentialities in terms of value propositions. And we also created the transformation breakouts, which are larger sessions where we involve a larger number of people from many areas, and usually with a topic. For example, the last one was over ecosystems, to discuss what should be our positioning and how could we move onward. When we also look into this innovation, we also have different kind of actions where we call the plugins inbound or outbound. Inbound is something that the company comes to us with certain needs for innovation, for example, for a process or as an expensive solution that currently is, or a pain point, a specific one, and we go out to the market to find what is happening. But also the outbound, where we go to the areas with a specific innovation and we find what is good there and share with the company. Usually when we find something really good and which is worth to share within the company, it's usually in a stage that it's already valid for implementation. So we just don't go there sharing ideas or dreams that we found. We go and share solutions that we have tested in the market, that we have assessed in detail. And if it makes sense, usually to launch a small prototype. It's something that it's embedded in the current processes. It's not a value proposition by itself. It's something that it's meant to ease up the current processes or to create small value added to our clients in the current ways that we are working. So these are the ways that we are sharing currently the knowledge and also connecting with the company. Also, because we have many value propositions undergoing, many solutions, we tend to do specific meetings at the senior level to share the status, where we are, what we are doing, what are our current plans, and keep everyone on board. So I think we are able to keep all the company informed. We are able to keep the company involved by giving us feedback, but also to be aware of what we are doing, and also in a very practical term, to have a look and feel of the innovation that we are assessing in the market and understand if there is a current fit to what can be applied today to their business.
Perfect. Peter, anything that you'd like to add to what they've already indicated?
Well, I think what we have done is we built really a small team where we brought also people in from outside, a really young team who is really, let's say, rocking the business. And on the other hand, with a local business unit, we created some kind of ambassadors and started with an internal campaign and communication, what our plans with this wellness program. And then we had enough volunteers to work on some fancy, really cool stuff. And I think for us it was important to get the buy-in from the local business unit, and that they could all have also their voice in designing this product.
Okay, perfect. Okay, the next question that I have is, again, it's a question that all three of you will be able to talk about. And essentially, so Zhao, I want to start with you. Talk a little bit about what's the best way to assess the potential or the performance of a new partnership or new technology? Are there specific metrics that you look for, or do you use some type of a measurement system that's more objective to be able to try and figure out whether the program you're looking into is one you want to continue on with?
Mm-hmm. So when we're looking to innovation, and can be a technological solution or value proposition, we basically go through several steps. The first is when we are identifying the solution, we try to understand if there is a pattern in the market. We try to understand if the market is aware for that solution, and we try to see if there is already involvement either from competition or investors. And when you see a VC or many VCs investing in a certain solution, it's usually one first driver that helps us understanding if we can have a good business case there. If we find that there is a pattern, if we find that there is market awareness, and if we find that there is a good involvement from investors or competition, we usually move to an evaluation phase where we go and validate the agents, so people that are current players in that solution, and can be just a financial, historical profiling to see who is in front of that solution. We assess the tech maturity, the technological maturity, to understand if it's fairly new, if it's already tested, if it's still prototype, if it's still a PowerPoint, or if it's already with some use cases already developed in the market. We understand if we have use cases for that solution, or it's just testing an enabler. We try to understand who are the players already operating with that solution. And the last, we go and try to understand the appetite from the business to test that solution. If we have a go in all these dimensions, we try to use and bring on board that solution. And because we already went through all this business and tech assessment, usually when we get a solution to test, is already mature. To give an idea, where does it usually fails? On the technological side, it's something that after a 3-week testing fails significantly. Or if you look into the development roadmap and basic functionalities are not valid for the first year. Or if the focus of the solution is not the one that is meant for a business case, and when we try to assess how much would it cost to diverge the current roadmap to the ones that we want for our business case, is too much expensive. So it usually takes several steps, but the moment that we get our hands on for one specific pilot, it already went through this assessment funnel, and we are pretty much sure that it's already valid to use.
Perfect. Peter, any additional comments on that? Any specific metrics that you guys use?
No, not really. What we are doing is we really actively contacting startups, looking based and aligned on our group overall strategy, where we want to move and how can they support this. And overall, what you're doing is always some kind of investment. So clearly we're looking, is there a trend where we see that it's more than a trend, which can be really developed in a larger scale? We're challenging clearly all the partnerships or ideas that we're seeing with a customer research that we're doing. So meaning some panel interviews or online tests. And clearly, when we're going with the partnerships, what we're often doing, we also want to check, are they willing to invest as well and doing a joint investment that we are doing. But there's not this one measurement that is there. Clearly, when we're looking in a field, we're working on a business case and saying, do this have potential, which can generate revenue, which is appealing.
Excellent. So I have a new question, and Milan, I want to start with you. And this one it's a great question. I think it's one that probably comes up a lot in people's minds, but I think maybe it's a good idea to talk about it. Given what you guys do and the subject matter that we're talking about, talk a little bit about what a large company does better than a startup and vice versa. What is a startup much better at than a large company? And how do you take that information and work it into your innovation strategy?
Sure. So yeah, another good question, and I think it's all, in my opinion, it's almost a match made in heaven, really, in terms of thinking about the features that a startup has, or the pros of a startup and the pros of an incumbent organization. So let's start with the startup. So if you're a startup, generally you have no legacy systems. You are available to you're able to move very quickly. You're probably working on a technology or a solution that is at the forefront of the technological movement. You're able to move without the constraints of kind of incumbent processes and sign-offs and governance and all of those kind of things. So there's some of the kind of real benefits of the startup. On the other side, on the incumbent side, the real benefits is you have an established brand, you have an established customer base, you have an established reputation, you probably have money, you probably have an abundance of resource for people to kind of work on these things. So if you look at the fundamentals of both sides of the table, then you have all of the bits to make them a success. Where it falls away and doesn't work is when organizations don't recognize the challenges that one another have. So, you know, as I spoke about earlier, when big corporate organizations expect a startup organization to be able to go through a 300-page contract and turn it round, when actually that startup has one legal resource, which is just somebody who they outsource to on a basis, you know, time-to-time basis. And in the same instance whereby a startup wants to move at pace and can't understand why it's taken 6 weeks to get sign-off. So like all good relationships, these things are about give and take. And I think that if organizations focus on the assets of one another rather than what the kind of problems or the barriers are, then taking that approach is far more refreshing and better. Sure, it's going to be frustrating, and there are some instances where, you know, actually it's easier to interact with another kind of large insurer, but actually they're not always the ones that reap the benefits. So what we've found is by focusing on the assets that each of the different sides have, then you can be really focused on delivering value.
Perfect. Zhao, any comments on that?
Yeah, I think, well, building on top of what Milan said, and I agree with everything, so I will not spend too much time speaking about the flexibility of the startups, which it's usually recognized. I think one of the things that they do very well is they are not afraid of going back to the drawing board when something is not working. And it's usually something that incumbents, it's a pain point for incumbents. So if I go to the board, present a solution, if I test in the market and 3 months after the market doesn't accept it, for an incumbent, it's usually more difficult to say, guys, apparently what we've sold you does not work. And startups do that very well because they are their own, usually they are their own board. So if it's not working, they are very fast acting on the market's feedback and adjusting their solution. I think what, on the other hand, and this is something that we see very often, what incumbents do also very well, or large companies do very well, is they are very more pragmatic understanding. When one solution cannot live by itself and can live as part of other solution. While startups, when they present their solution and you say, well, this does not have a life for itself, should be included in this part of my process, they say, no, I want my solution to be sold as a standalone. And it's something that we usually see that startups react a lot, but large companies, they don't. If we see that one solution is not valid for the market as a standalone solution, but it works very well as part of one process or as part of a bigger solution that is already in the market, that there is no difficulties on accepting that and moving that onward, because it's not our core business. And I would say that it's the two things that I would like to add up from what Milan already said.
Perfect. We've got time for one more question, and I think this is a great question to kind of wrap up with. And Peter, I'm going to start with you for this one. And what we've been talking about pretty much all day is how to innovate, how to take the innovation throughout the organization, partner with other firms, partner with people within the company, and try to get that innovation to turn it into some type of proof of concept and scalable product. What I'd like to hear now from each of you, starting with Peter, is talk a little bit about how you're taking some type of innovation, moving it beyond just a proof of concept into a scalable product, and talk about one success story. Most innovations don't really make it past the proof of concept stage. So focus on one success story, talk about that, and share that example with the group of how you've moved from an innovation and a concept all the way through the proof, all the way into some type of a scalable product on the end.
Well, firstly, I have to say, when we're talking about innovation, and that must be clear for everyone, when you're saying a lot of innovations fail, that's the usual business they're doing. So we always see the success that is working, but it's a lot of try and error. That must be clear. Yeah. So all the big guys that you know from history, doesn't matter before he invented electricity, they had several ideas that simply didn't work and failed. So I think it is important to keep the motivation up and always try. That's one of the important things. Yeah. What for me is there. And what we have done, and clearly, as I mentioned, the Vitality proposition myself is one of these success stories, as we have a real business case in the life business in free markets, where we're already selling a lot of products to retail customers. It's quite simple. Where we did it. Firstly, we got the buy-in from, and this is one of the crucial points was mentioned at the beginning. You need to convince your top management that this is a path where you have to go. And that is important that you always have this open door and saying innovation is something that is needed. Yeah? And what always is for me important, as I also said in one statement, even if you drive innovation, you always have to respect the existing success that you had in the past. Yeah? Otherwise, you will kill this automatically, because it then could happen that you create enemies within your organization if you not really respect what you have achieved. And every idea has its time that is coming. Victor Hugo was said, nothing is more powerful than an idea that its time has arrived. So I think that's a truth on it. So respect this, and then you will get the buy-in on that. What we have done then with the Vitality proposition is clearly where we're saying we're going from protection to prevention with a wellness approach, which is on the first side of the typical insurance proposition. We just made a customer survey, interviewed potential customers, taking a sample out of the population with an external company and saying, imagine there's a wellness program that gives you this benefit and asking you for that and that. And clearly, you have also in Europe this data privacy topics, which was also one of the crucial things that we have to overcome. And then, if this is working. And then we said, okay, fine, if you are willing to buy something, would you still be in if such thing is provided by an insurance company? Yeah? Because it's more even sensitive when we're talking about the health data. In parallel, we did the same exercise with a selected sample of our sales advisors. And for that, permanently, we always guided this with our internal PR. So showing always this will be the final solution to keep the motivation high and saying, "Wow, this is really fantastic," and finally we want to have it. Clearly, it was strictly monitored, the progress, and what we also did, which is one of the key success we did, we created here internally some kind of startup. So a startup mentality where we made a different work approach. So in the beginning, it was like a startup, not really structured, which was really strange for some of us here, because as mentioned, large companies are also powerful in organizing something. But we have, for example, still we have in our office a sofa where people just sitting there and fixing topics that popping up or problems within 5 minutes in a talk. So it's not really an organized meeting, not really having minutes. So that was done to ensure that someone is taking into an email and distribute the message, but it was really this agile and fast approach, yeah, and creating this team and keeping the team spirit high. I think that was the important thing, and permanently communicating and giving an update. So it was done weekly, an update also to the top management. This is the road. Here we are currently. Here we're facing some issues, but it will be solved. And we were really strict in solving topics. So usually the maximum that we allowed to solve problems was 14 or 8 hours. And I think this was one of the crucial points to make it happen.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank all three of you for all of your wonderful responses and the great information. I would like to just kind of sum up. There's a couple of things that I took from this. Number one, developing clear and honest expectations, not only for you on your innovation team, but also with your partners and with others in your organization, is one of the first key steps to being able to get this to work. The second thing is making sure that all of your communication channels are not only open, but flow in both directions. No matter who it is that you're talking with, whether they're internal or external customers, or even clients themselves, you have to make sure that the communication flows both ways. And then finally, one of the most interesting things, we're talking about monetization, which I think most people would immediately jump to profit and loss. Don't forget about customer engagement. Customer engagement is huge, and it's sometimes overlooked as a quote unquote monetization item, but really you need to keep that in focus. If you're able to improve that with innovation, sometimes that can be just as important as profit. So thank you all for joining. I'd like to turn it back over to Graham so that he can close us out and finish off the day.
Greg, thanks so much. And thank you to João, Milan, Peter. Really insightful discussion today, and we appreciate your time, and thanks everybody for listening. I would also like to add that this webinar is part of a much bigger project, which is the Connected Insurance Europe 2019 event, 15th to 16th of May in Amsterdam. Please do get in touch with me if you'd like more information about that. We are gathering European insurers from across the continent, 350 plus individuals, all looking at innovation, all looking at next generation insurance products and services. So if you're part of a product team, underwriting team, working in innovation or strategy, or part of the marketing group, this is an event where we talk about turning those innovative ideas into reality and really serving the modern customer. So do get in touch. Thank you once again to everybody, and we hope to hear from you and speak to you all soon at another Insurance Nexus webinar. Thank you.